He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was a hugely popular cartoon series and toy line back in the 80s. Whenever Eternia was threatened by the evil forces of Skeletor, the pink-vested Prince Adam would raise his sword and utter the immortal line, "By the power of Grayskull," transforming him into He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Also the cartoon intro claimed. I was always puzzled by how hardly anyone knew He-Man's secret identity. If you ask me, it looks like all Adam did was strip down to his undies and apply some fake tanning lotion. It makes Superman's use of a pair of glasses seem like the greatest disguise of all time. Anyway, the original cartoon was popular enough to inspire a follow-up series, a more recent remake, a spin-off starring He-Man's sister, and even a motion picture. Along with all that, we've had a number of He-Man video games. Here's Masters of the Universe, The Power of He-Man on the Atari. The game starts with the muscular hero climbing aboard the Wind Raider. His destination? The Castle Grayskull, of course. A counter at the top of the screen starts at 30 and gradually counts down as the Wind Raider flies forward. Trying to stop He-Man's progress are enemies who will try to shoot him down with ground-to-air lasers and a sort of spinning disc which slowly homes in on the aircraft. Thankfully, He-Man can blow up the spinning disc with a well-aimed shot before it collides with him. He can also drop bombs which will leave behind a crater when it hits the ground. The bombs can only be dropped when there's no spinning disc flying about, which is a tad annoying, but if you time the attack just right, you can get the enemy to fall down the blast hole, which gives He-Man some breathing room before the next threat appears. When you first play the game, you might find the going tough even with the 3 lives you're given to accomplish your task. Why? The lasers which the enemies fire don't go straight up. They seem to swerve towards the player. The direction which the laser goes is actually dependent on which way you're facing. I found that if you turn around, the laser will go off in the opposite direction. With a little backtracking every now and then, you can avoid the lasers, but it's still a bit tricky, as you'll often find yourself caught between a laser and flying disc, with little room in which to maneuver. I'm not entirely sure if the way the laser moves is intentional or a scrolling bug, but it certainly adds to the challenge of the game. Another possible bug I found is that you don't have to fly right to reach Grayskull. If you want an easy ride, head left, and you'll get there without a single enemy showing up. For some reason, the high score will increase every second, even if you aren't doing anything. Just be sure not to fire your weapons, as that seems to wake up the enemies and make them appear. There's a second and final level to this game once you reach Grayskull. He-Man has to walk to the right-hand side of the screen and hit the blue-colored enemy with his sword. I don't have the game manual, and due to the primitive graphics it's hard to tell, but I'm guessing the blue guy is Skeletor. Unlike the opening stage, this level is pretty straightforward. You have to maneuver between the 2 energy barriers and dodge Skeletor's shots to save the day. The energy barriers can be hard to avoid, but thankfully, by pressing fire, He-Man can at least block Skeletor's attacks. If you mess up here, you don't have to worry too much. The only penalty you'll suffer for getting hit is losing some points and getting moved back to the left-hand side of the screen. There's no lives, and you can keep on trying unless you screw up enough times to get your score down to 0. If you do, it's game over. To be honest, I wasn't very fond of level 2. I much preferred the flying side-scrolling section. Yeah, initially it's annoying, but once you learn to adapt to the way in which the enemy's attacks work, the game will grow on you. Whilst recording this footage, I actually lost track of time as I restarted the game over and over, determined to beat it. Masters of the Universe, The Power of He-Man gets a 7 out of 10 from me. It's by no means a classic, but when I think of some of the awful He-Man games which have appeared on more advanced systems, I have to say they could have done a lot worse. Thank you for watching, and take care.